Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I am Leah, and I am joined by my colleague Jared here, and we're here from FourFront, a digital marketing agency based just outside of Philly. Um, Today, we are going to be talking to you about navigating AI search and how to stay ahead in this very rapidly changing SEO landscape. So, thank you all for joining us. We'll give a few minutes just for everyone to kind of log in and join. But in the meantime, I'm doing some very important market research here. If you could drop your favorite vegetable in the chat, bonus points if you tell us your favorite way to prepare it. Mine is roasted Brussels sprouts. I don't have access to the chat.
If I had to weigh in, it might be mushrooms, but it's got to be done right.
Yeah. Hi, Anthony. All right. No one's playing the vegetable game today. I guess that means we're really eager to get into AI.
Or nobody's a big fan of vegetables.
Yeah,
One or the other.
that could be. That could be. Eggplant, artichoke.
Yes,
Here we
thank you.
go. Thanks.
We do eat our vegetables.
All right. So, roasted Brussels sprouts with sea
Good call.
salt.
Good call.
Exactly. So, like I was saying, I'm Leah. This is Jared. I'm an SEO specialist at FourFront. Jared is our operations manager. Between the two of us, we have years and years of experience in SEO and what feels like a lifetime of experience with AI already. The last couple of years have been a whirlwind. But we are very excited to be here with you today. We're going to be talking about AI search. In particular, we're really going to be focusing on Google's AI overviews. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we jump in, let's see, can I get the slides? Perfect. So, this is us. Welcome. It's going to be great. So, next slide. Before we jump in, how often do you all think the AI overviews are showing up in Google search results? This can be based on your own experience using Google. How often do you think we're seeing them? Go ahead and drop your answers in the chat. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. All right. So we're looking at either 79%, 22%, or 47%. And the answer, my friends, is 47%. So I don't know if there are any other Star Trek nerds out there in the audience, but just another example of 47 being everywhere. Let's see. So this 47% is kind of looking at kind of a cross section of different types of queries, but the numbers change a little bit depending on exactly what kinds of queries you're looking at and depending on which study you're really looking at. But we're really seeing between 40 and 60% is kind of this average number that we're seeing. If you break it down by query type, if we're looking at like long tail keywords, 5 or more words, we're seeing over 73% of the time there's an AI overview. Commercial intent queries, it's significantly less at about 19%. And informational queries trigger the feature about 58% of the time. So there's a lot of variability depending on how people are searching and what they're searching for. So for example, a long tail keyword, something like effective strategies for promoting webinars on social media, like very long, kind of specific query. We're seeing long tail keywords about 70% of the time. Something with more commercial intent, like webinar software pricing comparison, we're seeing it a lot less. So this is an interesting thing to think about with regard to optimizing your own content on your website for AI search. And we're hoping that in this webinar, we'll be able to give you some tips for actually doing that, actionable steps that you can take on your site with your own content to help you show up in these relevant searches. Also help you kind of stay up to speed, stay at the front of this edge in SEO and in AI search. So let's see. What is AI search and why should you really care? So the official definition is that AI search uses artificial intelligence, including natural language processing and machine learning, to understand search queries and deliver more relevant results by analyzing the meaning and context of words used. But that's a lot of words that say not a whole lot of helpful things. And so we are going to use this definition instead. In practice, AI search is a tool that uses artificial intelligence to understand your question and provide a direct zero-click answer on the results page rather than giving you that kind of classic list of links. So when I say a zero-click result, just as a little FYI, these existed before AI search. Think about things like featured snippets. But with the advent of AI search, we're starting to see a really marked change in how people are interacting with the SERPs and what that means for websites and marketers. So with a zero-click search where someone is making a search and getting their answer without ever leaving the SERP, you can imagine that that would have an impact on those kind of traditional KPIs that we look at with regard to search. So here is an example of what this might look like. So I did a search for how to host a webinar, and I got a very helpful AI overview. You can see it gives me an answer. It answers my question without me ever having to click away. But you do see on the right side here, we have a list of sources that it's using here. So I could click over to a site and get more in-depth information from one of those sources. But I don't need to in order to get this kind of basic information. So there are a whole host of different platforms that kind of fall under this umbrella of AI search. People are using Gemini and ChatGPT and Perplexity and Microsoft's Copilot. For the purposes of this webinar, we're mostly going to be focusing on Google's AI overviews, like I was saying before. But a lot of the kind of tips and tricks that we're going to be talking about are applicable to these other platforms as well. So, optimizing for AI search. You can call it AI optimization or AIO. You might hear it called search everywhere optimization or SEO. You might see generative engine optimization or GEO, which is my least favorite personally. But for the purposes of our webinar, we're going to be calling it AIO or AI optimization. And the fact of the matter is, it's not all that different from traditional SEO. There's definitely kind of some nuance and focus, but it's not just a wholesale new thing. So some of the things that you want to focus on when you're looking at optimizing for AI search is going to be targeting long tail keywords, providing concise answers to real problems, improving the readability of your content by using more simple language, using relevant statistics and citing those sources, and keeping your content fresh and up to date. But the fact of the matter is, excuse me, AI search is still evolving. There aren't totally tried and true best practices yet for optimizing for AI search. And this is definitely something that smart marketers are going to have to keep an eye on as the landscape kind of changes. And I would expect these recommendations to kind of evolve over time with the technology itself. But by and large, at this stage, a lot of the recommendations we're seeing coming out of different studies are things that are also just good for regular SEO, and user experience. So if you optimize all of the, or I'm sorry, if you implement these changes, these recommendations, and you don't land in an AI overview, you're still generally improving the quality of your content and your website. So I see it as kind of a shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land among the stars kind of thing. Some additional tips we're seeing coming out of this research are keeping conversational and spoken queries in mind when you're optimizing. So thinking about people doing more and more voice searches using Siri or different at-home assistants. I'm seeing some tips about leveraging structured data and schema markup, which again is a good thing just for helping search engines and users kind of understand your content, even if it doesn't make a huge impact on whether you're showing up in AI overviews. It's a good practice just to properly implement schema. Yeah, all right. So now that you know how to optimize for AI search, how do you know which which keywords to focus on? The truth is, there's not really a great tool that exists kind of in the standard marketing toolbox that gives you a great report for this. If you use SEMrush, they do have tools in their kit that can show you the presence of AI overviews for a given keyword and whether your site is ranking for it. But not everyone is using SEMrush. It's kind of a pricey tool. It's got a big learning curve. So how can you put this information together if you don't have access to SEMrush? You can kind of piece it together with a little bit of manual work. So if you go into GA4 or Google Search Console and kind of identify your top performing pages, and then look in Search Console and see what queries are driving people to those pages, and then you manually enter those queries into Google and take note of whether you're seeing an AI overview. That's kind of a, excuse me, that's kind of a manual way to put this together. But that can be kind of a long and involved process. And if you're interested in seeing, excuse me, how your competitors are doing, then that really kind of adds on to it. So here is where I'm going to tag Jared in because he has a lot to say about this and he's not about to cough. So thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Leia. I feel like you jinxed me. So hopefully you have not. But yeah, really appreciate the insights and a lot to break down and a lot of information that you've shared. So if you haven't caught on already, there's obviously a lot of information to digest, to process, and I realize that can be overwhelming. And some of the processes that Leia just described can be, sound daunting, time-consuming, both in time and effort and resources that you may or may not have and likely don't have on your side. So we want to narrow that focus down a little bit for you. As Leia has presented, we've shared a little bit about the how, different strategies, what to pay attention to, how to pay attention to those, whether AI overview is in your keyword search results or not. So I'm going to steer this in a little bit of a different direction and focus on the when and the why, which is based off of the question that Leia just asked. So the thing I'm excited to share is that we have a report for that. At FourFront, we've developed a report that really helps to identify and narrow your focus on the when and why. What keywords should I be looking at? What should I be paying attention to? So with such an overwhelming shift in the industry into the world of artificial intelligence, and as that gets integrated into our SEO and paid search world, we felt at FourFront that it was really important to create something that provided as much guidance and as much context as we can possibly provide given where we are in March of 2025. So as a result, really excited to share that we have built a AI overview performance report that helps to answer some of the questions that you might have. So I want to share a little bit about that AI overview performance report. Really, we want to focus on a few key areas within this report. First of which, what impact is AI overview really having on your keyword universe? I know Leah shared some benchmark statistics. There are numerous studies that if you search today versus yesterday versus a month ago versus what you might do a month from now, you're going to get some different results within that. And I think as both SEO professionals, as digital marketers, as general marketers, we get really excited about technology, myself included, and then we go and just do. But really, it's important to take a deep breath and really step back and assess the degree to which it's having an impact on our specific keyword universe. How is it impacting me, my business, my organization? So that's a part of our data-driven approach here at FourFront. We like to really use data to level set, to take that step back, really analyze, answer the question by providing a little bit more context on the impact that that is having for us, whether that is the 47% industry or the 47% benchmark across all keywords or some of the segmentation that Leah was talking about in previous slides. So that's area number one. Area number two that we really wanted to focus on within the context of this report is, where are we? How prepared are we for AI overview and generative search? So we assume that most users of this report don't really have that context with the 47% and some of the other kind of presence numbers that we're talking about, and or haven't really put in the effort into the specific strategies that Leah has identified and spelled out to get into that AI overview module and prepare our websites for that. So really, we wanted to answer, how prepared are we for the world of AI overview? Is our site already doing well for AI overview and we haven't seen that or don't know where to look in our data? Or do we have a little bit more work that we need to be putting in, significant effort to ensure that we do get there? So I want to go through a little bit in more detail, really to show the first part of that is, what is the impact that we're having on our keyword universe. So pulling out a couple of different visualizations from this report where we're looking at the search results, we're looking at the SERP data to really help you understand what the impact of AI overview is on your keyword universe. In what quantity do we have keep the AI overview within the search results for our keywords, and what percentage of our keywords is that impacting? And then the second piece, again, how prepared is our website for that? We might have thousands of keywords that have an AI overview that we are targeting with our website. What part of that do we already control or have some sort of presence in to really kind of establish what our baseline is as we're integrating some of the strategies that Leah laid out and mentioned? What is our starting point? Is that 2% of our AI overview keywords that we have some sort of presence in or some sort of ownership for, or are we working on are we more prepared than we think, and we're working from a much stronger starting point? So with that in mind, I want to highlight a few different key features of what this report can help you answer. So the first of which is really, how is my brand impacted by AI overview? As Leah mentioned, depending on the study, depending on the category of keyword, you're going to hear numbers like 47% of keywords have an AI overview. You might hear 75% of long tail keywords have an AI overview. For commercial, that number might be closer to 20%. So all of that is to say there is a really wide scope of answers here, especially as we're talking about, relatively speaking, the early adoptions of AI overview into Google search results. But really what this report helps to answer is to contextualize that for your brand, your website, and your organization. So are we talking about the 47% number that Leah is citing? That is more of an aggregate of all keywords. Or are we talking about more of a lower number than that, 20%? Or are we talking about a little bit higher than what the average might be? Really helping to contextualize, how your specific brand is impacted by AI overview. The next one, as a digital marketer, as an SEO strategist, as a marketing professional, that I'm really interested and always interested in, and our clients are always interested in, how are my competitors impacted by AI overview? So as we get to better understand our keyword universe and the way that our keywords are impacted, what number is that without any additional context? So what should we expect that number to be? How is that number compared to my competitors? So we try to benchmark that across several different peer competitors that also rank within the search results for the keywords that we are targeting and that your business is targeting, to really get a sense for, what is their percentage of keywords that are bringing up an AI overview, and how does that compare to our own, really to help kind of further drive home that specific number for your business as well. And then the third question that I want to highlight here, among others, is really what opportunities exist. How do we take all of this information about the impact that it's having on our brand, the impact it's having on our competitors? What opportunities are there for me to improve the performance for AI overview? What opportunities exist? So we all want to take the great strategies that Leah talked about and really start to go and do something. But, that is a loaded context and a loaded scenario. So where do we really start? So this report really helps to answer that question by looking at the different keywords, the different types of pages, the specific pages, really to focus on as we start considering some of the optimization strategies that Leah had laid out. So I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtain in how we help to answer some of those questions. So the first of which, how is my brand, my organization, my website impacted by the AI overview? So we provide that answer in a few different ways using a few different metrics, some of which I've alluded to in some of our previous slides. But we really try to do that in two ways. What is the raw number of keywords in which we are impacted by AI overview? Is that in the hundreds? Is that in the thousands? Is that in the tens of thousands? So we try to provide that with as much of the raw number as possible. And then we're also trying to answer that as a percentage of the total. Your site might not target 100,000 keywords or tens of thousands of keywords. We might be talking about a much smaller universe of keywords that we are looking to target, depending on what your business objectives really would be. So what percentage does that raw number of your total really equate to? We might be talking about 10,000 keywords, but if you're a massive website with a lot of great content and a lot of different objectives, you might have 500,000 or 1 million different ranking keywords, which is obviously a much smaller percentage as that number grows. So it's really important not just to look at the raw number, but to always have that context of what that number actually means. So a couple of different visuals in terms of what you would expect to see within the AI overview performance report. The first of which, again, is how many of my keywords are really impacted by the AI overview. Is it 25% as this visualization is showing? Is it the 47% that gets often cited in some of the more commonly known studies of the AI overview module? And then, of course, how optimized is my website for AI overview? What do I already own? What percentage of those keywords and AI overviews do I already own? Really to better understand what our starting point is, what our benchmark is, and where can we go moving forward. So I'll move into the second question here. which is, again, as we better understand ourselves, we also want to understand, how does that compare to some of the peer competitors and other organizations that I benchmark myself against. So we answer that in a few different ways. Again, kind of building off of what we already discussed is how many AI overviews do we quote unquote own, or how many of the AI overviews does my website contribute to versus some of the other peers and competitors within my industry and space. So really helps us to better understand and really answer how many AI overview rankings do my competitors own, how many do they contribute to, how does that compare to myself or my organization. But also understands or helps us to better understand, again, that kind of benchmarking of here is where we are now. How well are my competitors optimized for AI overview? They might have more of a raw number of owned AI overviews or AI overviews that they contribute to, but really how optimized are their respective websites for the AI overview module? What percent of keywords are they able to rank in or contribute to the AI overview? So really helps to provide additional insight and perspective into where our website stands, not only with respect to the AI overview, but how does that compare to, where my competitors are performing within the same space, and what different strategies, what different strategic cues can we take away based off of that competitive landscape and some of the numbers that we're seeing. So last but not least, certainly not least, what opportunities exist? Where do we start? You're ready to commit. You have all the data that you need. You know all about yourselves. You know all about your industry. You know all about your competitors. Where do we really start when we're ready to make that leap and start optimizing and integrating some of the strategies that Leah had mentioned to start optimizing for AI overview? So within the context of this report, we're really looking to answer that in two different ways. First of which is what pages and the second one, at what keywords are we looking to optimize for when we are kind of starting this journey into AI overview strategies. So we really try to highlight the top opportunities in both areas, really to give you a sense for where to start, because it's an overwhelming venture, and we totally recognize that. So I want to make sure that we are giving you the most effective starting points as you're looking to kind of start that journey. So the first of which that I will highlight here is the top page opportunities. So which pages have the most opportunity to perform an AI overview? If you're looking to integrate some of the strategies that Leah had mentioned, what pieces of content on your website should you really be focusing on? Leah mentioned a few different data sources. If you don't have access to, a whole suite of tools that you can look into, looking at things like Google Analytics, looking at things like Google Search Console, really to identify what are the top drivers of traffic and visibility that you have on your website. And I think that those are great starting points. But we really try to answer that in the scope of this report by looking at which pages are we seeing traditional success in with our quote unquote traditional SEO metrics. As well as do those same pages have a strong degree of AI overview opportunity with respect to both keywords and the volume of those keywords that bring up an AI overview. So the second piece of that, we're looking at that from a page level, but we also aim to answer that question at a keyword level. So what types of keywords or which specific keywords bring up strong AI overview opportunities for our website? Do we rank well with those same keywords in a traditional sense within, what you would expect the traditional search results to look like? We really try to use that performance metric of our traditional organic rank really as a cue for identifying the potential for keywords to optimize for in the AI overview. If we are and have an ability to rank in very strong positions in a traditional sense, we can reasonably assume and expect strong AI overview performance for those same sets of keywords, even if we're not already present for those AI overviews for those keywords. So really helps to contextualize, where to go, where we are, where we're going. So obviously we've thrown a lot of information at you up to this point. So really what it boils down to, or how I want to close, is really why does this matter? There's a few different reasons. So there's a lot of information, as you've learned through this webinar, through your own readings, through your own chatter and conversations. There's a lot of information about AI overviews. There's a lot of studies. There is a lot of data. There are a lot of findings, various analyses. So the list and the amount of sources that you can read on this doesn't stop. From our point of view, we couldn't really find a great solution on identifying what is directly relevant to you and our clients. So really, a couple of things that I want to highlight. The AI overview and what we are able to provide really helps to understand a few key points that really drive the importance of this home. The first in which, again, really understanding how your brand and how your website and your organization is impacted by AI overview and all of the changes that you're seeing. So the second, really to get an insight on competitor strategies and competitor performance. Again, there's a lot of raw numbers that we can look at. There are a lot of studies that we can read, but it's really important to get as much context into those numbers as possible, as well as benchmarking your own organization against some of those insights. How are they impacted? What's working for their respective websites? The other piece that I want to highlight is, again, finding the different opportunities, whether they're quick wins and short-term wins that we can get with, relatively speaking, I'll say little and put that in quotations. So little opportunities or a relatively short amount of time to start seeing incremental improvements for our AI overview. Again, both in the short term as well as the long term. So if you're really interested in any of the questions that we posed today, that's awesome. Great. Glad you're here. I hope that you've had a chance to learn a little bit about the AI overview, some of the strategies to get into the AI overview. You've heard about our capabilities in terms of direction setting and providing some of that additional context to you. So if you're really interested in this journey, would love an opportunity to kind of talk and learn a little bit more about your business, your organization, and what your ultimate, marketing priorities, digital marketing priorities are, so we can kind of help to level set and direction set alongside you. So as a thank you for attending today's webinar, also want to offer the opportunity to enter a drawing, which everyone loves, for an AI overview performance report. Supply that to you and your team so we can help guide you as you start this journey. I believe Ben, the man behind the scenes of today's webinar, has a QR code that you are able to scan that QR code. You will be taken to a form, provide us with some information, and we'll be reaching out to those who submit to that form. You can also, in addition to scanning the QR code, you can also use the link that's provided there, forefront.us/AI 2025. You'll be taken to the exact same form. We are asking that you do that within the week. So we will be taking submissions for that until the end of day next Wednesday. And then we'll be contacting those who submit to that form in pretty short order. So once again, thank you. I see that people are already scanning that QR code. That's great to see. So yeah, once again, I really want to say thank you for the opportunity. Hope that you've learned something about the different strategies used for AI overview. If you're new to this topic, that you learn more about AI overview and generative search in general. I apologize to Leah already if I am using a term that she is not subjectively and personally a fan of, but really hope that you have learned something along the way, and really eager to kind of help anyone on this webinar get started.
Awesome.
With that, I'll pass it over to Leah for QA.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking my personal preferences into account here. That's really kind of you. So thank you, everyone, for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed learning about that report as much as I did. When Jared first kind of presented this to our team, I was just totally enthralled. If you remember me talking about how you would try to put this together yourself manually, this report is really a cool thing. So we are going to open it up for some Q&A now. Looks like we should have plenty of time for that. And I do see some questions popping into the chat here. Let's start with Lynn. While improving AI overview performance, our visibility on the right side would increase. But what are your thoughts about the non-click problem that is inevitably going to increase? PPC or something else? So that's a great question, Lynn. I think we actually have seen that AI overviews are having an impact on click-through rates, not just for organic search, but also for PPC. So PPC is a great strategy. I'm a huge proponent of using paid search advertising alongside SEO to kind of support each other. But I think the fact of the matter is that we're just going to see click-through rates being impacted as a result of this, and that a really good strategy is going to be to not rely on click-through rate so much as an indicator of success, and look a little bit farther down the funnel at whether people are actually converting. There's also a lot of value in kind of spreading out your marketing resources onto other channels and putting some effort into being where your audience is. So you still want to have a great site and good content and put effort into showing up in search, but it's also going to be valuable to think about where else can you get in front of your audience. Jared, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, all really great points. I think, one of the things that this has kind of stirred up in conversations on our side, both internally, discussions that we're having as a team, as well as some of the conversations that we're having with our clients, is really thinking about the bottom line impact that your general marketing efforts, both general marketing efforts, things that are happening offline, as well as specifically online, which is what we're talking about here. How is that having the impact on the full conversion funnel, right? You might be accustomed to having a few key metrics that maybe you've been working on SEO for a long time, and there have been a few key metrics that you've used as success metrics, whether that is, what is my average ranking? How many clicks am I getting to my website? How many impressions might that be? Which all work for traditional SEO and have worked for a number of years. But as we kind of go into this new territory, definitely think about, what everything means, or definitely think about the metrics that you've been tracking and whether those are applicable to, where we are in 2025. So really encouraging our clients and everyone on this call to really think about, what impact are all of our efforts, whether we're talking about the AI overview module, whether we're talking about other features from that Leah mentioned that are zero-click features within the search results, not necessarily using our traditional metrics to measure, is that successful? Are we seeing the fruits of that labor? And potentially pivoting and looking at some of the other metrics across our organization to really help answer that question.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we have a question from Kate. Are there any specific SEO tools or platforms that already track AI-generated results, or is this something we have to monitor manually? So I imagine that the answer to this question is going to change as soon as by the time we're done with this webinar. But as of right now, there isn't really a great tool that's on my radar, at least, that just like tracks this stuff for you. Like I said earlier, SEMrush, you can access that information in their tools, but it's not even like a set it and forget it like tracker report that will just tell you how things are ranking. It's more of a research tool. So as of right now, I don't know of any great tools that just monitor this for you that exist. Do you know of any, Jared?
No, not to my knowledge. I think you've hinted and mentioned a few different kind of commonly used industry tools that do pieces of what we're talking about. But I don't know of any great specific solutions or tools that only look at AI overview. I think there are a lot of tools that this gets baked into. But as far as a dedicated solution or tool or platform just to handle what we're talking about today is not something that I've seen on the market.
All right. Jared, I'm going to softball this next question to you from Ben. With the integration of AI into organic search, is Google the only search platform we'll need to care about?
No. I think, in the context of today's conversation and making this as consumable as possible, I know we focused a lot on Google. And I do think that Google is going to continue to make up the bulk of the SEO world, whether that is traditional search engine optimization or the search everywhere optimization term, as Leah highlighted. I definitely think that Google is going to play a really big part of that. But if you remember some of the tools that Leah had highlighted, we're not just talking about Google search as we're talking about AI generated overviews. There are tools like like standalone AI tools and AI search tools like Perplexity, like ChatGPT. I'm sure everyone who is interested in this topic has used one, if not both of those tools, whether that is for personal or professional reasons. So I definitely think that there is a lot to look at. And as you mentioned in your previous answer, Leah, that probably changes in the next 18 minutes by the time we're wrapping up this conversation. There's so many tools that keep popping up within the scope of AI and even within the particular niche of AI search that it are things to pay attention to, like the ones that I mentioned. But I have no doubt that there are going to be 3 additional ones if you were to ask me that question a month from now or a week from now.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's an interesting one, another one from Kate. What are the implications of AI overviews for local SEO, particularly for businesses with multiple locations or serving specific geographic areas? You want to take that one, Jared?
Sure. I think it's important to understand first kind of the concept that search results change depending on what you're looking at and where you're looking at that keyword from. So I think it's always important to kind of keep that concept in your mind and integrate it into your strategies as you're talking about different keyword targets if you're targeting different locales. So I think that is another reason why it's important for a shameless plug for a report like this to really help understand, what is the keyword universe. The 47% number that I know we keep referencing is really helpful as an industry or like as a benchmark for what percent of my keywords could we be talking about here in the grand scope of our keyword targets and potential impact. But it's really important to get additional context on what that means. We might be looking at the same keyword in 10 different locales, some of which may be impacted, some of which maybe not. So I think that this report that we're talking about and really doing a deep dive in terms of the types of pages and the different types of keywords that are really contributing to the AI overview landscape of your business helps to really contextualize and understand if that is happening for you and your brand.
Awesome, thank you. I would just add to that that AI overviews are just one of a whole suite of tools that Google uses to provide what it thinks is the best answer for people. So something like the map pack, which is the classic local SEO SERP feature, that's not going anywhere. And like Jared said, the results are going to be different depending on where you're searching from and what you're searching for. But I think it's really easy to get caught up in like, oh, AI overviews are the new big thing, and that's what we should be focusing on. But I don't think that just because this is the new shiny thing, that folks who are paying attention to local SEO should stop working on those things as well. It's still going to be really important to have your Google business profile optimized and work on showing up in that map pack. So I hate to say pay attention to everything, but I don't want folks to stop efforts for local SEO optimization in favor of AI optimization if focusing on local SEO is going to actually have a bigger impact on their bottom line, for example.
And I'll add one more thing, because I think one of the strategies that you mentioned is important. There's overlap in terms of that strategy too. I know that we hesitate to throw around the pay attention to everything concept, but your efforts in one area aren't necessarily going to be conflicting or contradictory to what you do for something like AI overview. There are definitely things that, Leah had mentioned within the scope of optimizing for something like AI overview and generative search that directly overlaps with, some of the local search strategies that we would recommend to clients and businesses that are looking for representation in multiple geos. So I know that might sound overwhelming, but take a deep breath. Some of those, those strategies that you're using for, one facet of your business is certainly going to overlap with, some of the other things that we've been talking about.
Totally. We've got a good question from Chris. Have you noticed certain types of keyword intent, like informational, transactional, etc., showing up more often than others in AI search results? So the informational intent is probably the biggest chunk based on the research that I've been seeing. AI is really good at answering those kind of top of funnel questions where people are just sort of searching for general information. And in my experience and based on what I've been seeing in the data, it kind of narrows down from there. Like as you get closer to a purchase intent, AI overviews become less and less applicable. So like we were looking at in that one slide, I'm never going to be able to pull it up in time, but the number for commercial intent is much smaller than the average or the number for informational intent. So yeah, it definitely will change depending on the kind of question that people are searching for. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Jared?
No, well, yes and no, because I see that we have a question from Ravi that is directly or indirectly tied to that, which is, are there specific industries or a particular niche where AI search is having a bigger impact than others? I think Chris's question really alluded to the different types of keyword intents and the impact that has on whether AI overview plays a significant part of that type of keyword. But there's a different way to slice and segment that information as well, which is what Ravi is asking about the industry and niche. So there are definitely studies on both of those. What I've seen for the by industry segments is the prevalence of that is relatively speaking heavy for things like healthcare. Roughly, I'm going to throw out some numbers. Don't quote me on this because it depends on the study that you're looking at. In healthcare, it might be to the tune of 50 to 60%, falling somewhere in or around that range, which to me makes sense. As we're talking about, based off of what you just mentioned in your answer to Chris's question, information heavy. We're talking about an industry where I am a prospective patient or I'm getting to know or answers to questions about my personal health. I want a lot of information. There's a lot to consume as I'm going through that aspect of the decision journey. So it makes a lot of information for that type of industry to be heavily impacted, and as we talk about going further down the funnel where those percentages start to drop a little bit, it's a little bit more commercial or transactional, e-commerce, which you can break down a lot of different ways, might be, depending on the study, you might see anywhere from 20 to 30%, which is a much lower percentages than what we're talking about for something like healthcare. The lowest I've seen are things like kind of real estate or automotive. Again, subjectively speaking, that makes sense to me. You may not be looking for as much information as you are for individual products. So there's not as much information to consume from an AI overview in that 0-click SERP as you're going through the decision-making journey for whatever it is that you're searching for. But definitely variation across the different segments, which Chris and Ravi so graciously alluded to with their questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this is another place where I'll point out that AI overviews are just one of a suite of tools that Google uses. So for an e-commerce business, there are other SERP features that are much more tailored to what you're doing. So, excuse me, it's definitely just one of the things that Google is using to give answers to people. And it's not replacing a lot of these kind of longer standing SERP features that Google's been using forever now. All right, we've got some great new questions. With Google's recent shift from AI overviews to AI mode, giving conversational answers and citing sources, does it hurt click-through rates or affect any other key metrics? We've definitely been seeing a negative impact on click-through rates in the studies that we've been keeping an eye on and kind of in our own data. My prediction is that click-through rates are going to be really heavily impacted by AI search and AI overviews. Do you have anything that you'd want to add to that, Jared?
Yeah, I definitely think that concept and that answer rings true. And I think it rings true whether we're talking about the AI overview that is baked into the traditional result or in AI mode, which is going to be more of like your dedicated Google platform, and also similar to some of the other tools that Leah mentioned as well, like Perplexity or Chat GPT. I think all of those, whether that's baked into traditional search results, we're talking a lot about Google, but acknowledging that Bing and other search engines are integrating that into their respective platforms too. I think that 0-click behavior is certainly true for kind of the traditional results, as well as the different dedicated search platforms. So I think things like click-through rate is going to be the most obvious of those. But I would assume, that's going to have, obviously, if we're talking about click-through rate, we're also talking about the impact that has on other metrics as well. Click-through rate based off of your click percentage. So any of those are going to be impacted. When we're talking about the different dedicated search platforms too, and this goes back to what we were talking about with some of, how do you measure your success? We don't have ranking metrics for those types of platforms where you go into Chat GPT and you're having a conversation. So, how do we measure our success for that? Because we can't measure that in more of a traditional sense for things like our average ranking or our average position or am I cited? Because that conversation is going to flow so differently from the conversation that I will have in those tools and the way that I'm going to be asking and presenting and interacting with that platform versus, the conversation that Leah would have, even though we're talking about, directionally the same topic or looking for similar information. Great question.
Yeah. All right. To be respectful of everyone's time, let's take this one last question and then we'll let you know what you can do if you have more questions after the webinar is over. But Lynn has another great question about do we expect that Google will change how ads are delivered, maybe integrating them with AI results? My short answer is yes, always expect that Google will change how ads are delivered because Google is always changing how ads are delivered. They are continually iterating and testing out new things. I would hope personally and professionally that it's not just like a pay to get into the AI result thing. I would hope that that's not the direction it's going, but I would bet you they'll test it. So yes, I would expect that we'll see some changes to how ads are delivered or maybe where they're placed on the SERP. Do you have anything you'd want to add, Jared?
Yeah, I think, from what I have read recently, Google is starting to experiment with the monetization of the AI overview. So that obviously, in short, means yes, there probably is going to be some sort of ad presence within the AI overview. I am curious what that actually means for the traditional ads that you may be using in your paid search ads or otherwise, because I do potentially see them as two different objectives. As we've talked about a lot here, the AI overview does a lot of it's a lot of zero click searches, which isn't necessarily going to be the bidding strategy that you might be accustomed to in your regular, where you're paying X amount of dollars for a click to the website. So it would be, I think, you might see kind of two different avenues of campaigns you can run, one for AI overview and one for traditional, one being more of a brand awareness and brand recognition through the AI overview, where, I do think that there's still going to be some form of traditional paid ads that you might be accustomed and may have been running for the past, several weeks, months, years in your campaigns. That I think might be there to stay as well. But like everything in this topic, stay tuned. Things change quickly. I would imagine by the time that this conversation's over and by the end of week, that answer is very dated. So definitely stay tuned and try to stay on top of, anecdotal as you're searching Google. But there's a lot of great resources out there providing information and aggregating some of that news and testing for what people are seeing in the search results.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. It seems like there are lots of questions. And so I just want to let you know that if you have questions after we're done today, if you, like me, will think of a really important question as soon as we finish, you can reach out to us. Ben, man behind the curtain, can I get that final slide up? Or here. Boom. This one. All right. So if you have questions after the fact, please feel free to reach out to us. We really seriously would love to hear from you and we'll answer you. So you can contact me. My email address is up there on the screen. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Same thing for Jared. There's his email address. Connect with him on LinkedIn. Another plug for the giveaway for the free report. So we've got the QR code, or you can navigate directly to the form by going to forefront.us/AI 2025. We'll have those submissions open for the next week. So go ahead and get that in before next Wednesday afternoon for a chance to win a free AI overview performance report. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time and for joining us today. We've really had, or I can only speak for myself, but I've had a great time chatting with you.
I've had a great time too. Loved hearing about everyone's favorite vegetables to kick this off, but really enjoyed being able to chat about AI overview. If it wasn't already very obvious in our answers and presentation, definitely something that we're really excited about. Speaking for both myself and for Leah, as well as the rest of the FourFront team, something that we're really excited about as a topic. I know it can be daunting, but something that we are very obviously eager to chat about. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Leah, either through that form, connect with us on LinkedIn, send us an email. Happy to chat even further. But thank you so much for your time. And Leah, thank you for co-managing this with me. It was a lot of fun. It was great.
Thank you, Jared.
And thank you to Ben for being the man behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Ben.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to scan that QR code if you haven't already. Send us any questions you have, and Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you so
Until next
much.
time. Thank you.